Sargon of Akkad made a video on his channel, Akkad Daily, which basically captures the journey of a North, that is, a working class man residing in northern England, from being a Labour voter to a Tory voter. The video is interesting because, unlike other videos, which talk about people waking up to realize that the left is a sham, in this video, Sargon argues that an average North voter has remained largely unchanged, but only the Labour Party has changed. You might be forgiven if you are bewildered by the narrative, for a person who votes Labour does not just love Labour, but also hates Tories, as Sargon himself agrees. So, why would such a person vote Tory then, instead of just taking a sabbatical from voting? Sargon goes over this himself, and we will analyze his take on state of British politics, because Sargon himself was by no means a right winger when he gained much of his fame. Sargon's take on the movement of Labour voters to Tory presents us with an interesting explanation that seems to come from the experience of his own pursuits. Sargon first tries to present what are perceived as the goals of an average North. Significant other, pub, and England are represented as three concerns of the average North. Right wingers will not disagree with this characterization because they recognize that an average liberal left voter is concerned with three things that distinguishes himself from them and the left. Unlike the conservative right, the average liberal left voter is concerned with immediate relations that provide benefit in the shortest amount of time, that is, relation with one's sexual partners. Unlike the more enchanted high class right, the average liberal left voter is concerned more with a low class community lifestyle, that is, of pubs, which is produced by alcohol and other intoxicants. And unlike the left, the average liberal left voter views the country in favorable light because the country, itself being liberal and leftist in many aspects, is actually favorable to the average North's political views. In fact, if Sargon had stopped there, I would not even find a need to make this video. But Sargon explains the deeper meaning behind these three wants of an average North. The average North actually wants a family, a community, and the country. Now, except for Tories being represented as money hungry evil capitalists, as the left believes them, Sargon diminishes almost all differences that an average Tory voter has with an average North. One can call it equivalent to Sargon shifting the overtone window and claiming the average liberal left voter is actually the same as the average right wing voter because Sargon needs to present his side as being right all along, at least in his heart. But is that really true? Because Sargon puts all the blame on Tony Blair for the state of the Labour, even though the ex PM left office in 2007, around 12 years ago, which is surprising in itself. Let us look at the Labour Party before it. Tony Blair became Prime Minister of UK in 1997. In 1970s, then Labour started an extensive left-wing procession, even from the standards of UK at that time. Let's look at an example. Labour was instrumental in passing the Equal Pay Act of 1970. Now one might say here that such an act was good. So let us look at the act. To prove one is being discriminated on the basis of gender and deserving of restitution under the act, one just needed to prove that the work done by the person is rated the same as that of other employees, or is broadly the same. To see the real life example of that standard being used, let us look at a very important case. Clay Cross Query Services Limited versus Fletcher of 1978. So Mrs. Fletcher was paid a weekly wage of £35 along with other clerks. Mr. Turncliffe, who newly joined the company, got an offer of £43, which matched his previous salary. Mrs. Fletcher complained, and the final decision went in her favor. The judge ruled that the salary that a person had in his previous job was not a relevant factor to consider while offering him salary, and once a pay disparity was established after considering all objective factors like experience, skills, and qualifications, the employer had no ability to further negotiate in a way that could result in different salaries to men and women. Interestingly, we all know that a lot of other factors do play out in salary negotiations, and even if one believes that all of those are irrelevant, Equal Pay Act did not address any gap in salaries of two male employees, for example, if one was paid less than the other because of negotiations. The Court of Appeal took away all power of negotiation, but only in cases where the disparity involved people of two different genders, because the Equal Pay Act was not intended as a remedy to ensure fair wages to people who could not negotiate well. It was created to benefit women. The Labour also did few other things. Decriminalizing abortion was one of them. Labour also reformed the divorce laws. Under the Divorce Reform Act of 1969, the Labour led reform made no fault divorce a valid means to end marriage. So, marriage was now basically a live in relationship, and one could, in the relationship, get rid of babies too that were unwanted. This happened in late 1960s and early 1970s, much before Tony Blair ruined it all for the Norths. Labour still won the 1974 general election and got a lot of support from Norths. Norths also did not resent support from the Labour significantly, even though the Labour policies resulted in falling of real disposable income by 7%. Labour also had to cut a lot of welfare for the people, and while it invested in education by opening schools, the fact that a government was in place which led to cut in income of the people and limited choice was not good. Conservatives won the next election under Margaret Thatcher, whom the Norths despised, due to largely the South and Central UK standing for that point of view in large numbers. Thatcher opposed immigration in large numbers even in the late 1970s, but her proposed policies were termed as forms of new racism. She was skeptical of what was European Union at that time and was for autonomy of her own country. Norths still did not like Thatcher. So what changed? The migration. Before Islamic migration, the average North viewed Tories and the elites as the reason behind his bad condition, whether it be strong conservative morality of the conservatives or free market views of the libertarians. Norths hated what they believed led to restriction of choices for them, as they believed Tories neither wanted them to have money nor freedom to make choices they deemed immoral. The Muslim migration changed all of that. The anti immigration crowd convinced enough Norths that if Muslims arrive here, they would lose their freedoms. The Muslims would also reduce their share of pie that they wanted to get from the elites and the rich. The fears of losing welfare, bad economic conditions, and imposition of strict code of morality made the Norths vote against their own party. Norths did not vote against the Labour because they saw Labour as communist, as many people pretend. Because while many strains of communism do advocate for a unified struggle of worldwide working class, communist societies were not as degenerate as the Labour has become, with all of its progressivism on display. In fact, many communist societies try to severely maintain public morality. Labour is still the same left oriented neoliberal party as it was before in its economics. The manifesto of Labour in 2019 does not seem different in type from what you would have expected after 1980s, but is just different in the degree. The 2019 general election mandate is neither the great awakening of the Norths, nor it is the return of North's true intentions in politics which were hijacked by the degenerates. The 2019 general election is the result of the whole nation trying to maintain neoliberalism against people whose coming they see as detrimental in their own ways. North supported feminism, but now are wary of it because it did not go the way they wanted. North did not support any social family oriented policy that conservatives rejected, or the ones that come immediately to the mind. And North community was purely an economic class revolving around working people. Painting Norths in other light does not change any of these historical facts.